This week's movie is Civil War, streaming on Max. Made new last year, came out last year.
I saw it in theaters.
And Nick was the one who picked it.
Yeah.
What is Civil War, Nick?
It is a movie about the states that have seceded from the United States of America. And one of the states called themselves the Western Front, and they are fighting against America. And the movie follows this group of journalists who are following along in the action on their way to Washington, D.C. to try to interview the president of the United States of America.
Short and to the point.
Very short and to the point.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the angle of following the journalists.
Mhm.
I think that was a really cool, because I've always been kind of interested in wartime photography. My dad had a book, like a coffee table book of photographs from the Civil War. That was one of the first Civil War. That
The
was
OG.
one of the first wars, I think, that are the first that had photojournalism happening while it was happening.
Yeah.
The photographers would be exactly like in the movie, up close, personal, right there.
Well, it's because they had to be. Their cameras weren't very good.
Fair. Hey, hold still while you bayonet that guy. Just need to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think it was a very fascinating take, because they could have just showed resistance and it could have just followed that. But the fact that it followed these neutral people who were just trying to document all of this while it was happening, I think was really cool.
The Civil War was a backdrop. The Civil War wasn't the story.
Yeah.
It was about this group of photojournalists.
Okay, Nick, here this for you. If you wanted, there are 3 other pretty good fictional movies about photographers in war, and then there's a documentary just called, I think it's just called War Photographer. But the others are You're Living Dangerously, which is from the 80s. That Linda Hunt won the Oscar for playing a male photojournalist in, that one was in where? These are based on real wars. And then
Was it Vietnam?
No, it was, Indonesia maybe. And then Under Fire is a Nick Nolte movie in which he is a photojournalist, and I think that was based in Kosovo or somewhere like that. And those are both really good movies, and that documentary is good. And then last year there's a movie came out called Lee, that's about Lee Miller. Kate Winslet played her, and Lee Miller is the reason that the Kirsten Dunst character was named Lee in this movie. It's kind of a tribute to her, because she was kind of the first woman in the journalist, in the photographers, at least, that was doing war photography.
Yeah, you're right, Kent. Indonesia is where Year of Living Dangerously is set.
So,
starring Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver.
Yes.
But as you mentioned, Linda Hunt won in the Oscar for supporting actress,
and she was the photographer in it.
Yes.
I think Mel Gibson's like a TV reporter, and Sigourney Weaver this is a long time ago since I've seen this. I think she was like part of the government who they were trying to interview or who they got with. And then the Nick Nolte one, and this movie, really, they're neutral, right? And this is about kind of what hits the reactions and what they have to go through. And, there's some real moral issues about photographing people getting shot and killed and bodies and all of that, right? That was part of this, where in at least one of the other ones, it's about how do you stay neutral. And I believe that it's the Under Fire that Nolte then takes sides, so to speak. So,
Ken, I'm curious as to how that landed to you the first time you saw this movie, and now rewatching it again. And I don't know if you've seen it a third or a fourth time, but I remember like when the trailer came out, it was like, whoa, American Civil War in modern times is pretty interesting. And I remember one of the reactions to it was like, California and Texas are teaming up. That's pretty weird. Don't feel like those states would be on the same side.
Florida was kind of doing a thing.
And I know that when the reviews started coming out, some were frustrated with Garland, the director, for being maybe more apolitical than people were hoping for. I like that about it. I like that it is kind of like this smaller story set in with this backdrop of a civil war happening until the very end, when then it has to become about the president and what's going to happen.
Mhm.
How did that land to you the first time, and how does it land to you on the rewatch?
The first time I went in, not knowing that, literally went in and saw it knowing only the title of the movie, which is what I like to do. And so I was surprised that at first it wasn't really about a civil war.
Agreed.
I was glad that it wasn't, because that would be way too on the nose to do that contemporary. And it would have turned it into a political film no matter what, whether they
Right.
I agree.
No matter what side you're taking in it.
Exactly. So I was happy about that. What really got me the second time, and it kind of got me the first time, this has zero to do with the plot, with the like, I don't need to give everything away because it's a new enough movie. Most people haven't seen it, but suffice it to say, the last, 20 minutes, 30 minutes takes place in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with Washington, it does not look like that.
No,
Nor does the White House look like that. And
no.
if you've ever been in the White House, it's not a bunch of corridors and rooms off the corridors and whatever. The White House is really pretty small, and there are lots of great big rooms on the first floor, right? And that really got to me this second time. It's like, okay, I get why you're doing it. I get, it works dramatically. But if you're trying to even vaguely represent that it's the White House, you could come a little closer, right? Look at the movies from like American President or the West Wing on television.
Yes.
That's what the White House is really like. This, absolutely not. And that really took me out of the movie this time for some reason.
It did me too, because I was actually fascinated to see, because obviously they didn't shoot this in Washington, D.C. They would never be allowed to, at least, to the White House. So I was wondering how they were going to make that look. And having just recently been to Washington, D.C., and this was right before the inauguration, you couldn't get within 2 blocks walking to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get within 2 blocks. And this just made it look like, it's just another building right down the street. And so, yeah, that might be a little bit nitpicky, but when you consider, hey, they're in the middle of a civil war, you would think it would be even more, bunker style and difficult to access in a circumstance like
Interesting.
this.
So I guess I took it as, I don't want to spoil too much, but just they're losing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how I took it. I didn't
Right.
take it as like it's easy to walk into the White House. I took it as it's game over.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's game over.
I'm talking physical layout.
Yeah. See,
and-
now that's something I can't
Yeah.
speak to.
And Kent's right about that. I've toured the White House. Obviously, when you tour the White House, you only go through the public place.
Areas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't get to go
You
to
don't
the
go to the
Oval
West Wing,
Office. You
yeah.
don't go to the West Wing. You don't go to the residential quarters.
Yeah.
Okay, and there you go. Here's another. If we're doing White House architecture inaccuracy, when they show the briefing room, when they first come in, that's in the basement of the West Wing. Not in
Correct.
the
It
front
would be
door.
it would be
Yeah.
right inside.
It's not right off the portico. Hey, it's right over here. It's got a sign and everything.
But
I guess
that's kind of neither here nor there. But
Yeah, now to me, and I agree with what you said. If this would have been about a civil war, there would have been a lot of political takes one way or the other about this. So I like you don't have an issue with narrow casting the story to just this group of photojournalists. I guess to me, in the trailers, I'm looking at the movie poster, which shows, the
Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty and the torch and people with guns perched there. all of the run up to this made it seem like, hey, this is going to be about a civil war. Again, the Civil War is just a backdrop of the story of these photojournalists. And so it was a little misleading, I thought. So I went in with a different mindset of what this was going to be about. And I was a little disappointed initially that I was like, okay, who's on whose side? What's going on here? And we didn't get any of that. And then I realized, oh, this isn't really about the war. This is about people covering.
So do you like that?
I like the narrow focus.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like the fact
The
that
bait and switch.
It was a bait and switch. I mean, in the way, because I saw the trailers as you did,
Mhm.
I saw the promotional as you did, and maybe this was on me not knowing more going in, but that's how people get to movies: is you advertise to them,
Mhm.
and if they think they're getting one thing and they get something else, it could lead to a disappointment. So I think they kind of shortchanged themselves a bit here.
Well, but here's the thing, Ken, if they're advertising and it's like, come watch the journalist drive across America, I know a lot of your people are probably like, I don't know if I want to go see this movie now. I wanted to see the Civil War movie.
So I could see them, and I don't know if A24 really does series at all, but I could see them using this as a backdrop for other movies, kind of like what happened with the Purge movies. How you had the first Purge movie and then the different Purge movies take place in other areas.
Mhm.
I could see something like that happening where they just show different aspects of this Civil War, different areas. Because they said they were fighting all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
They
Well,
didn't really specify.
ain't
where.
gonna happen.
Fair.
A24 isn't really a production house. They purchase films, right? They're not Disney, Marvel, whatever. Their operation's a little different. And then Alex Garland, who wrote and directed this, is on to something else, and I'm sure that this is his intellectual property. So
Yeah.
That is a little disappointing. I do like this universe. I found it all very fascinating. I'd like to know more about it.
This was the most expensive movie this production company's ever put out. It was a $50 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
This is
and
They're
it made
both-
lots of money. It did well.
it did.
Yeah, it was their opening weekend for it.
Yeah, it grossed over $120 million. So
What was the scene that, I don't want to say favorite, but like maybe unsettled you the most? I think because someone can't send us it was Odson. They sent us the GIF of the Jesse Plemons character, and that whole scene when they, they're doing the weird car thing, and then one of the cars goes out in front, and suddenly they're gone. And at first you're watching, you're like, oh, did they get in a car accident? I think that's the immediate assumption.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
no, it's that they run into this complete creep who, I mean, Jesse Plemons is such a great actor.
He's so
and
good at playing unsettling men.
and him and Kirsten Dunst they're married.
that
Yeah,
was the
he's-
most unsettling thing I found about this movie was I found out afterwards that they're married.
Yeah, they've been married for a few years.
They have been.
And he is uncredited in the movie. And the reason that he's in the movie is whoever was cast before that couldn't come because they were sick or something when they were shooting that. And so
Wow.
she's like, he can do this.
And,
come
and
on
sure
down.
enough, that line though, when he's asking them like where they're from and
What kind of American are you?
like what a line, because like that's the thing, they can't. I'm American. Okay, what is it? And so I love that scene because in the lead up, and I want to make sure that I get the characters' names right real fast. But the main male character, is it Joel or Joel? I can't remember. Joel. He is he just talks such a big game. He's always super confident. Like there's the moment where there's gunfire going on in the background and he mentions something, that's going on inside of his pants. But then that moment happens and he like loses it.
Mhm.
Absolutely, comes unglued and gets super emotional. And so I think that part of the movie, I think, is when it peaks. I think the ending is really good, but I think that's the best part of the movie. Very unsettling.
And I think the other thing that kind of comes through, and I don't know how direct, is the way that the Kirsten Dunst character, who is Lee, sort of mentors this girl, Jessie, who was, when she got into the movie, couldn't even take a picture
Right.
the first time that that she was very good. She's from Priscilla. I can't remember the actress's name. She's very good.
I loved seeing that kind of character development unfold in that way, where instead of like, I guess it is kind of an emotional character development, but you see the most character development through how she wields the camera.
Yep.
And how
Kaylee
reckless
Spaney is her name.
how reckless she is too.
And then speaking of another weird thing that made me go, what? When they're sitting there together and she's trying to find out the background, tell me your story thing, and she's looking through the pictures she took. They're on film. She was looking at film. Nobody uses film anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe in the Civil War you have to. Maybe digital cameras aren't working.
She did say she had a film camera, didn't she?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a scene where she's like doing her own.
Actually looking at
She's
the
developing
negative.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's doing her own infield development.
I like how all of her pictures were in black and white, and then Kirsten Dunst's
Were in color.
That was
Yeah.
a cool differential.
Because Kirsten Dunst was using a digital camera, like every photographer on the planet.
Correct.
Another very small detail that I really liked in this movie, it was like a quick half-second thing, but it's toward the end when they're in Washington, D.C. There's one point where, I'm sorry, what was the name of the new Jessie?
Jeff,
She had reached out, and then she took a picture, and then she got back in cover right away. And the Joel character, he smiled when he saw her creep back in because, like, I taught her that. Like, she's come so far.
A couple comments in the YouTube real fast. So Odson, going back to what John was talking about earlier, says it makes sense why they did it the way they did, but I was really disappointed that it teased all these political ideas and never dealt with any of them. And Stibbs, on the other hand, and this is where I am. He says, I know I'm in the minority, but I kind of liked the okey doke. I felt it wasn't about the war. I thought it was more appealing for whatever reason. I did find myself unbothered by that, like when I saw it in the theaters. It did not get to me at all.
Right, but I would. If someone's trying to sell me a hamburger, I don't want to get a hot dog.
Well, and it's funny. We've had that discussion with you, John, throughout the movie club history. Like I remember one of the movies that we did, and you were going in thinking it was a comedy, and it wasn't really that funny. And you were like, I didn't like it because I thought it was going to be funny, and it wasn't a funny movie. But I didn't go in maybe with any expectation for that.
I had no idea what this movie was about at all.
Outside of the name.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't either.
I mean,
but,
I had to guess what it was about.
But in seeing the trailers, in seeing the movie poster, the title of the movie, it might have helped it a little. It might have helped it a little if we would have gotten some background as to who was doing what to who and why it started. And I'm not saying it needed to zero in on that. There just could have been something that would have kind of given you a little more background, and then it escapes. Kind of similar to how Obi-Wan tells Luke the story about the Clone Wars.
So
right?
But then they get exposition.
But then they get right back into, because I didn't mind again the story. I thought the story was fine. I thought Kirsten Dunst played. I'm not used to seeing her play cold ass little bitchy characters. I liked it. She did a great job.
There was a line in the movie when they're talking about what they're going to do when they interview the president. And one of the guys brings up a third term. So I just kind of assumed that the president didn't want to give up power, so made it so he could have a third term.
Right,
And that's what
right.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on the Kirsten Dunst character, I think it wasn't that she was such a bitchy person. More, she'd been so hardened.
Right. Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
War torn.
Right? That how much that impact. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, honestly, I don't have what it takes. I couldn't anymore been a war correspondent than I could have flown a jet, but I can't imagine what it does to those people and a lot of them chase war after war after war. And it's like, that has to really dramatically change you.
Yeah, because not only do you hate it when you're in the moment, you get past it, and then you probably miss the rush of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think that's what they were. So you got the contrast between her, this hardened, and then the
Bright-eyed bushy tail
doesn't have sense enough to even wear a Kevlar vest.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. It's basically like, don't get into this because it will then own the rest of your life, in all the worst ways.
So I like what Laszlo put in the YouTube comments. He says, maybe the point was that at a certain point in war, you lose sight of the original reasons you're just in it. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah,
too.
for sure.
And especially on the ground level. I think that's true. And that's been a theme through lots of war movies that,
Mhm.
okay, here are the reasons for the war, but it really doesn't matter to this guy in the foxhole.
Sure.
Well, that scene when they're driving and like there's like the Christmas decorations and the Christmas music playing, and they ask like, "Why are you shooting at them?" And it's like, "Because they're shooting at us." You know, it's not even about, well, they believe in this and we believe in this. No, it's they have a gun and we have a gun. What do you mean? What kind of question is that?
And I thought the other thing I thought that was very effective was when they went into the little town and went into the dress shop,
Yeah,
Uh,
where it's like, aren't you paying attention to what's going on? Well, basically, the shop girl said, what can we do about this? Right. So we're
Yep.
just going to go on living like it isn't going on. And it's like, I'm sure there are people like that. Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really, I thought that was pretty illuminating.
Well, in a giant country like this one, you know,
100%.
there's gonna, you know, and if you could imagine flyover country, that there would be a lot of pockets of places like around here
Well, that's what-
that would be kind of blissfully away from all the action.
That's what Jessie said. She's like, her dad's not dead. He's just hanging out on his farm in Missouri, pretending like none of this is going on.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it made a lot of sense. It was good. I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it. You know, and I liked how it ended.
I thought the ending is
It
awesome.
was really good.
I liked how it ended.
Nick Offerman is fantastic.
Yeah, he's the president.
Well, he was only in it for like
No, that's what I'm saying though.
a minute and a half.
Even with how long he was in it, he still did such a good job.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
Well, he was in it at the very first, remember?
Yep.
yeah. He you hear his voice in the first, you know, in the opening credits,
Just in his tie.
and then you see him at the end,
Mhm.
and that's it. And that's all you need to know.
I
Mhm.
don't know where Jesse Plemons got those glasses. Do you think that was part of it, or do you think he just like had those?
Like in real
When-
life?
Yeah, when they asked him, do you think he just borrowed those from his wife or somebody?
I have no idea.
I I think that
The
just helps his character.
the psycho he seems to be, not that he's
He's so good at playing unsettling men.
yes, he is.
Yes.
Even
he
in
did,
comedies, how could that possibly be profitable for Frito-Lay?
he did a great job in Breaking Bad of being that exact kind of freak.
Mm-hmm.